of years ago, I had a call from a guy whose name was Muhammad, and he lived in Egypt, in Cairo, and I had met him many years ago in Hamilton. I worked with one of his companies. And while we were on the phone, he said, "John, you just have to come and stop in Cairo. I need to see you." It had been 19 years since I talked to him. And this boy had cerebral palsy. It took him maybe 15 minutes to get to the elevator, but he made calls every single day. Well, somehow I was going to Singapore, and Singapore Airlines have a connector in Egypt if I wanted to go that way, so I did. When I got there, he took me to a room that was maybe a third the size of this one. And we opened up this big, heavy door. I mean, it took me a little bit to get this thing open. And when we walked in, there was all these here little things about the size of this workbook. And on the workbook, or the picture I was looking at, was all different words. The first word that I looked at, it said D-A-S-I-R-E, desire, which in my language means desire. And underneath that word, it had a definition of what desire really means. And what it said is to give birth to. That desire means to give birth to. That should be very easy for everybody in the room to identify with that. Because what is your desire telling you? What does your desire say to you? Could somebody help me with that or give me some feedback, please? What is desire saying to you? How do you interpret desire? What is it? Come on. Come on.
It's the impetus that makes me want to go.
What is it?
The impetus that makes me want to go forward.
Something that wants you to go forward. Very good. Desire. You have a desire to run a marathon. What is that desire telling you?
It's telling me that I want to work towards it. I want to get there.
Something you want to get. Yeah, you want to get there. You want to work toward. We understand that. You see, the word means to give birth to. Now, I'm going to try out your consciousness here. Remember what consciousness is. Consciousness is what? It's that awareness of something we know today that we did not know before. Let me try to give you an example. I always call it the John Juris syndrome. Regional director out in Ancaster. That you get in your car here and you're driving away and you get to a stoplight, wham, somebody pulls up behind you and they start laying on the horn. What is your response to that? Anybody? What's yours?
What are you honking at? What are you honking at?
Yeah, what are you honking at? And or some people in here would say to me, well, I'm just maybe pull away and just ignore the guy and things like that. But not John Juris. You get to the third light, the guy is still laying on the horn. What are you doing?
No, I wouldn't get out of my car. I'd move aside. Probably.
You'd move aside, okay. Well, John Juris is out of that car, and he wants to drag this guy right through the window of his car.
Why?
That's a good question. You said why? What would you say?
Yeah, but to what end?
To what end? Yeah, of course. But hey, you got to remember, some people only think in this moment.
Yeah.
You know that.
Yeah. But that's not the kind of living in the moment that I want.
I know. But you can't decide for John Juris.
No, I can't.
But see, here's what happened. John Juris goes racing back to the car. True story. And the guy in the car said to him, "Sir, I'm really sorry. It's my son in the back seat. I'm trying to get him to the hospital." Just like that, there's a new awareness sets in, am I right? Just like that. And guess what? The best guy in the world to help him would be Juris. But understand what took place here. Something took place where John Juris suddenly, a new awareness set in. And the next time a situation like that happens, John will respond differently. Now, please understand something I'm going to share with you that was given to me by a great teacher. And he said this, between stimulus, and what is the stimulus? The blowing of the horn. What is the stimulus? A client asking you a difficult question. What is the stimulus? No, I'm busy, don't bother me, we're not interested. That is a stimulus. What is your response? What is your response to that stimulus? Because you see, between what is called a stimulus and response, there's a large area, and that area, as I said earlier, is called choice. You made a choice to pull off the side of the road. Yours made a choice to go racing back to that car. And all of us would have made maybe a different choice. I'm saying, what kind of choices are you making in your business that's costing you stress, that's costing you so much in terms of money? What is it costing you? The choices that you're making. Now listen, you can't make choices based on your past. Or you can say, oh, well, I screwed that up, so I got to choose differently today. No, you don't. No, not necessarily. You don't have to do that. But I want you to kind of work with me here, because you have 4 basic desires of which you operate with every day. Every day we operate with these 4 desires. Now look at your very first desire that is true about all of us, but it changes over time. But now watch this carefully, because your first desire, if I could use this, your very first desire is what is called a desire for possessions. A desire for possessions. What kind of car you drive?
Kia.
Huh?
A Kia.
A Kia.
Yeah.
Okay. Is that your car of your choice?
Sure.
Okay. All right. If you doubled your income today, would you buy a new car? You would?
Yeah.
So you're telling me you're driving a car you don't want.
Yeah.
You got to make love to your car. You got to tell your car how much you love her, okay? Or love it. Okay, you do. Can you do that? So when you get in there tonight, just say, honey, I love you, okay? Tell your car that. It'll operate better. Do you know, you get into the same car. Just say, if everybody had the same car, do you know the looseness of the wheel, the tightness of the wheel, everything about the car is different for every person that owns the car? Because it has something to do with our energy. I know you're going to tell people that I am crazy, but I'm not. You'll see, okay? Now look. That's the first desire. The second desire is the desire for experiences. That may be to coach a kid's baseball team. It may be play another instrument. Maybe holidays, traveling somewhere, whatever. Everybody has a different experience. Well, there's another one here, and it's called the desire to love and to be loved. Now, here's what's interesting about that. I remember watching, this here great entertainer, maybe the world's best. His name was Michael Jackson. And I think Michael Jackson, when he was on the platform, he felt total, complete love. That's where he felt loved. When he was off it, he didn't know if people were trying to manipulate him or they were trying to use him. He didn't know. He was kind of like the guy in this picture here. Same thing. That could have been, that's somebody in this room here today. Somebody in this room here today has a desire for one of these 3 things. However, we feel like we're pushing this thing uphill. And sometimes we rationalize. Thanks. Some days we rationalize, where we're at and what we're doing. We rationalize it. That's what we do. Thanks. I want you to look at something that becomes increasingly important in your life. I don't expect you to just walk out this door today and buy into it because Kanary said so. I want you to really think. In other words, I have respect for your intelligence. You've got to have respect for your intelligence. And understand that thinking, we don't think well because we're intelligent. We're intelligent, and that's why we think well. That's why we think well. So look at this for a moment. If you could leave this room today, and I'm going to get into the workbook here and the mindset, I'm going to do that. But if you could leave this room today with the desire for significance, there isn't anything in life that you cannot have or enjoy or build. There isn't any life that you're not able to build if you focus on significance. I'll tell you, I've been around this stuff for a long time. I have met some of the best gurus and some of the worst. I've read hundreds of books. I've studied it. I've been all over this planet so far. Helos. Helos. Anybody know what helos means? Anybody? Yeah. And I went to another word. And it talked about the word health. Anybody know how they define that? Here's what hell meant in that room: not to see. Now, what could be a worse hell than being in a situation today and you don't believe you can get out of it? How in the hell do you work with that? I mean, if your belief system, and this is what we have to talk about, if your belief system, if the feedback you're getting from your deeper self is telling you you're stuck, you can't get out of it, that's not a good way to live. Do you know, every year in Korea and in Singapore and in Malaysia, they have what is called the exam police. They're police that go around checking that the kids are not up studying till 3 or 4 in the morning, because some of the parents, they go to school on exam days with their kids. You know anything about that? You know how important education is in Asia? Kevin, you know what I'm talking about? You know it's the main focus, isn't it? It's not business, it's education. And there's kids jumping out windows over there. Is that true, Kevin? There's kids kill themselves over their marks. And that's because of a deep-rooted belief of what failure means. Of what failure means. It just means I've got to do something better, something else. I've got to make a different investment maybe. Maybe something different. But the word hell, the true meaning of the word in that room that day, it said not to see. That's what it means, not to see. It doesn't mean there's some big badass guy with a pitchfork there shoveling people off into a place of fire. That's not what it means at all. That's not what, if that's what it meant, the Leafs deserve to be there. Okay. So let's look at this word now. Okay, and this person that was struggling on there, let's say is you. And we go back to this here person again. What needs to change so that this person doesn't have to do this every single day? Well, you know, anytime I look at that and I think about that, I think of my dad as the coal miner. It's what he did every single day. Every day. Did he do it because he wanted to? Oh, to take care of his family, yes, but that wasn't the motivation behind it for him. He thought he had to do that. He had to do this. So when we look at this challenge here that we talked about, and that we just need this little piece that's on the edge of our heart, and we're trying to embrace it and bring it in and bring it into our heart, let's see where it takes us. We said it takes us to the expectation, but I want to take it a little further. Here's why we don't change. What is holding back most people? It's called paradigms. What is a paradigm? I mean, if paradigms are the major thing holding people back, what is the paradigm?
It's the change.
It's a what?
It's the change. It's the almost the reverse change. Like a paradigm shift is something that would.
Okay. Would it be beliefs that we hold to be true?
I think no. It's actually a shift in your belief.
A shift in your beliefs. Yeah. Okay. Everybody, has anybody got my vision board here? Well, I want you to write down a new board. And this new board is called your crap board. C-R-A-P. No, write it down. This is your crap board. Okay? Crap. C-R-A-P. You have two sides of your brain. You have the left frontal and the right frontal brain. Okay? We all have that. We all know that. Now let me ask you something. Where do you worry at? Do you know that side of your brain really has one single purpose in life, is to solve problems? the left side,
Oh, the left side.
is trying to solve those problems, huh? Now let's just take a little peek here. If everybody will write down at the top of your page, just write the word crap, okay, instead of like vision board, crap board, C-R-A-P. And here's what it means. Number 1, conflict. Number 2, resistance. Number 3, anxiety. Number 4, problems. And number 4, problems. Okay? Number 1 is conflict. Number 2, resistance. Number 3, anxiety. Number 4, problems. Okay? All right, now let's think about this for just a minute. If you take and you write down everything that's going on in your life and that is affecting you or influencing you negatively today, I want you to write down what those things are. I want you to write down, have you got anxiety over your business, whether you're going to do well? Have you got anxiety over your mortgage? Have you got anxiety over recruiting? Have you got anxiety over prospecting and developing your business? Have you got resistance towards picking up the phone and making the calls? Like, when I'm sitting back there listening to Jim today and what he must have went through at that day at church there when he had that situation, he thought maybe his life was going to be over. On the other hand, he thought maybe it was a good idea for it to be over if he wasn't able to work, kind of thing. And it's amazing what we go through in our head and some of the things we're hanging on to. So if you can write down, what's the conflict you're dealing with today? What's the resistance? What's the anxiety? What are the problems that you're dealing with today? See, we're told to ignore those, and I'm telling you not to. Because if you can continue to put them outside of you, it's not going to have the same influence on you. You with me? We walk around all day long thinking that that's a part of us, and it's not, because you just took them and put them all out here. And that's where they belong, out there, not in here. I guarantee you're going to see a little bit of a shift in maybe some of the anxiety you feel as you start to do that. You'll see a shift in some of the resistance you have. You'll have a shift in some of the conflict. You'll have a shift with some of the problems that you're dealing with. What is the struggle you're having between your beliefs and your crap board? Like this crap stuff that is is at the front of our brain there that we hang on to. Can you see how what you wrote down there can make a significant change in the way that you approach maybe some of the things that you're concerned about now? That maybe you start to approach it this way and see what really changes. Can you see that? This is where the first change is going to have to come. Because when we look at this here word significance, it means contribution. When we look at this word significance, here's what that word should mean. It's what are you doing to make a difference? On the last day, and I don't know what that day is, I do know there's only one of them. That will be the day everything will just come down to one single thing. Did I make a difference? Was the journey worth it? Was the journey that I took? Am I glad I've been on that journey? I mean, you imagine going to work every day feeling that way, what a difference it would make in how you run your day. Instead of walking around wondering, Jesus, am I going to be able to pay the rent? Am I going to be able to this? You use that thing that you just wrote out there on a sheet of paper, and I guarantee you you'll see a difference. You see, we got to stop thinking that freedom means our ability to do what we want to do. That's what we've been led to believe. And like Jim and I talk about this all the time, but this new generation thinks that freedom is just like do whatever you want to do. That's not true. That is not true, and it never has been true. Freedom means to get yourself to do what you should do. Freedom is the ability to do the things we should do. Those things that make that significant difference. A significant difference is what that is. And you know what's interesting? It brings about all those other things. I know, for example, that when I walked into Canada Life a number of years ago, and I saw Jim behind his desk downtown Toronto. Saw it there. Running Canada Life here in the country. The goal that he had set when I met him up in Kitchener. I don't even know if he knows that I knew this. But Jim had an outstanding goal to be running a major insurance company in a major metropolitan city. Seems to me, Jim, you achieved that. But it also seems to me that wasn't significant enough for Jim. See, not everybody goes to work just for money. He didn't. He didn't. And if you can go to work every day with a significance leading your attitude, you too are going to find a huge difference in the business that you write. In the business that you write. So on this page where we're talking about our attitude, that our attitude is those thoughts that we hold. That makes up the biggest part of our mindset. And the second part is about our beliefs. And what you have to identify here, as you turn the page, what you have to identify on this page is what is that single limiting belief most important for you to remove and understand it's not in you. It's your belief that's making it real, not the belief. It's your belief about you that's making it real. We must search out new and vigorous activities to accelerate performance. Let me tell you where that comes from. Some of us have limiting beliefs only because of things that we make ourselves do that we don't want to do. We kid ourselves in. Remember I said earlier, you can't lie to yourself? Here's what I'm going to suggest to you, Aaron. You and I have had a few conversations, sure. Right? Yeah. I remember when the young lady at the back of the room there, Rochelle, when she started as a DD. And I remember things that she went through. She went through some good times. She went through some tough times. I remember what she was going through. Today she looks suave and debonair. Wouldn't you agree with that?
Yes, I totally.
You have to agree. She's watching. Okay. So here's what I'm going to suggest, and everybody here at the table, is it Mark? Mark, yeah. What a handsome guy you are. Huh? Did you know that?
Thank you.
You already knew that? No humility at this table. Huh? Standards. If I asked all of you to write out your standard now, could you do it right away, or would it take you a little while? Your standard. Mark, could you do that? Yeah. One day, I'm out on a beach in Australia. I think it's the Gold Coast we were on. You've never seen so much plastic in your life until you've been to the Gold Coast in Australia. It makes Hollywood look like schoolboys. But anyway, I go out, I'm having a little run, I've got a day off, I'm enjoying myself, and I see all these people coming this way. And one of them looks that much bigger than everybody else. And as I get closer, I see why. It was Tony Robbins with his entourage. I'd met him a couple of times. I said to Tony, don't you have a seminar today? And yeah. Well, I said, hasn't it started? No, it doesn't start till I get there. Hoping I can do that one day. I had maybe 10 minutes with the guy. And I asked him, what was the one thing that made such a change in his life? What was that one thing in terms of the vigorous activities, whatever it was that got him to do it? What was that that limiting beliefs? Believe me, he knows more about it than most people I know. But here's what he said. It was the day that I absolutely decided what was no longer acceptable in my life. 400 million later, I would say he's done that. So what is no longer acceptable in your life? If you take this standard here and you write it out, remember what I said earlier? How much you change is not near as important as the fact that you do change. As the fact that you do change. So what is a standard that would create and bring about the change that you need to make? I need you to write it out here. I need you to kind of get inside you there. And I want you, hey, listen, appreciate this. When the mind captures something, you got a great chance of succeeding. When your heart gets it, there's no doubt. Remember I told you about being up at St. Joseph's there in Montreal? I had this person standing beside me, and I said, when you look at what we're looking at there, that person down on their knees with the light coming down, showering them, what they're doing is making a commitment to complete the journey. Remember, the definition of success is that it's the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. What is the only acceptable standard? And what is no longer acceptable? Please make that clear about you. Now here's where we're stuck, okay? Watch. This is what gets people stuck. They don't really believe they can. They're playing mental gymnastics with themselves. You know, like one day we do, the next day we don't. There's no consistency in what we're trying to create or generate. There's no consistency. I found it quite interesting at the Blue Jays, the pitcher by the name of Price. And in one of the conversations about why they brought him here, because he's going to be demanding a lot of money after this year, and the difference this guy makes in the dressing room is greater than the difference he makes while he's pitching. So they looked at him like for other things other than his raw athletic talent. So they don't make it an absolute. Hey, listen, if we're going to establish a standard here today, it has to be absolute. You may be around people that's not something that they want to be, that they engage in. Find a new group. My dear mentor from years ago, Mr. Nightingale, he said, all kinds of studies have been made regarding motivation. What is it that motivates people to do the things they do, achieve the things they achieve? And he said, well, there's no pat answer to so large and complicated a question. He said, we believe the overriding force that motivates people is due to their choice of environment. Unfortunately, he said, some people make the choice consciously, but a large majority make the choice unconsciously as a result of environmental conditioning. So here's what I'm suggesting. Somewhere in here, there's an idea that once changed, I shouldn't say changed, once replaced. Once we take one single limiting belief I talked about, which can be altered, replaced, and can be removed, just like a garden. You see, a garden has no choice in what it's going to grow. It has to accept what it's given, and the same is true of the subconscious mind. No ability to reject an idea. None. So you see, if we make something an absolute, that's the quickest way to the subconscious mind to change something. And it doesn't know the difference in a big idea or a small one, and it doesn't care. I mean, why go to the ocean with a little bucket? Well, the same thing here is you can dip into this consciously with an idea. Any kind of an idea where I take and I say, here's what's going to happen in the next 90 days in my business, in my life. The standard is this, and I accept nothing less. That idea then begins to change. And when that idea begins to change, the manifestation in terms of results, it begins to change. Let me ask you, why in the hell are we, if it's that simple, why aren't we doing it? Because that's the difficult part, is the actual doing. They don't take consistent action, you see. And what did we say the biggest one was? Standard, okay? Their standards are often too low. The standards are very often too low. They define success in ways that make it impossible to achieve. What would one of those ways be? If we keep sending out mailers, somebody is going to write in and say, I have $1 million to invest. Could you pop over and see me? Yeah. It's so sad, but there's some of the things that we actually do. It says, don't overestimate what you can achieve in a year, and never underestimate what you can do in a lifetime. Like, were you just doing this for a year? Is this a 1-year thing we're working toward? A 90-day thing? What exactly are we working toward here? So what is the greatest obstacle to success, Kevin?
It's a big
I asked
thought.
Kevin.
Yeah, I said Kevin.
Oh, Kevin is the greatest obstacle to success. Yeah.
And his greatest.
Yeah. Is there a word?
What?
Yeah. A word for the greatest obstacle is very simply this, okay? That is costing more money for people. It's costing us in health. It's costing us in relationships. It's costing us so much, this here word. Like, I went fly fishing with Jim, because Jim's from out west, okay? And we go fly fishing, and suddenly we're in this here little brook, running water there coming down from the mountain. And I got my feet wet, so I sat down, took off my running shoes, put them around my neck, and we're walking back to the parking lot. And Jim said, "Jake, hey." I said, "What?" "Hold it. There's a bear coming down the hill in front of us." I looked, I sat down, and started putting on my running shoes. And Jim said, "What the hell are you doing? We can't outrun that bear." I said, "Oh, Jim, I only have to outrun you." Man. So fear was a good motivator that particular day. So what is the foundation of fear? And you need to kind of like see if you can take one thing just from this, okay? What is the foundation? It is based more on emotion than it is on any fact. Usually, you can almost rationalize that fear is not going to harm you if you will do that. We must see fear as a bridge to progress and for growth. We must see that. We must, and look at rejection. It's an issue that can be released. Rejection, okay, is an issue that can be released. What is rejection, by the way? Anybody? Can anybody give me an idea what rejection is? Come on. It's the most costly thing in your business. What is it?
Somebody saying no to you.
Somebody saying no to you? Or it's you giving your power to somebody else that you think has more power than you. How do you feel about that? Come on, guys. Mark, how do you feel about that? It's us giving our power to somebody else. For me not to want to pick up the phone and call somebody, I'm actually saying I don't have the power to make this call or to change this person's mind if they should answer the phone. So what is rejection? Rejection is simply giving up the one thing that we have to do the thing we need to do to succeed if we want. So prospecting is an issue that can be what? That can be, say it.
Pursued.
It can be. There's a thing that I've referred to as the 6 pillars to success, and probably tomorrow we'll talk about those, which has a lot to do with prospecting, etc. So look. But I want you to look at the 4 major frustrations in making this change in forming habits, in creating good, positive habits, like planning habits, like prospecting habits, like follow-up habits, like learning habits, like commitment habits. If we could get ourselves really focused on this, you'd see a huge change. So when we talk about this one on what is called our comfort zone, do you know that everything that you and I want, it's outside of the comfort zone that we are in today? It's outside of the comfort zone that we're in today. Everything you want is outside of that comfort zone. And you know what we do? We work at trying to pull those things that we want into our comfort zone. That's what we work at. So here we are. This is the start. This is what we are focusing on, what we want to do. But between us and that star, there's a lot of activity. And some of that activity is taking us outside of our comfort zone. Taking us way outside there. And what's keeping us in the comfort zone is something called rejection. Have you ever considered that rejection is a habit that we have learned over and over and over again? Over and over and over again. So how well are you doing, we'll say, with these two? And then how well are you doing with relationships? Because this is a major frustration for a lot of people. Would you say this is a major frustration? Tell me why it is, though. Is this a major frustration because you have too much or because you have too little? Now, you may think that's funny that I said that you have too much, because Bill Gates, I watched him in an interview, and here's what he said. The financial world is structured as such that any single person, regardless of the amount of money they have, could be broke in 3 months, depending on the way they treat money. That's from Bill Gates, guy who gives away billions and billions of dollars. He obviously is very comfortable with money. So what kind of a shift would I have to make here? What kind of a paradigm shift would I have to make here? You see, are we aware that maybe, let's take our income, for example. Let's take our income. I want you to associate your income with a habit in your life today. Do you have a positive habit about your income, or do you have a negative habit about your income? See if you can help me with that. Help me out here. I need it if we're going to do this properly and correctly. Would you say that your attitude towards money is such that, like if you're not earning money, there's something about your habits. Something about your habits. Remember, successful people have formed the habit of doing things failures don't like to do. What are those things? What are they? So I need your help on it if I'm going to do this. Mark, where's your habits at with regard to money? Okay. Do you have the ability, okay, to find one person, if you took from 9 in the morning, and I say the best thing you can do is be in front of a prospect at 9 a.m. in the morning, not in the office pretending you're a fund manager with your computer. That's not what you do. That's not what you do. Prudential took away computers in the 80s from a lot of their planners, and everybody did better. I wonder why. So what would you be able to do every single day, Aaron, if you had to find one single person who would be interested in just conversation going forward on financial planning, insurance, whatever, critical illness, whatever it might be? Do you think you could find one?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Are we doing that now?
Working on it.
I didn't ask you that, Mark.
Yes.
Regional directors have all those things written down in their drawer that we're working on it. Listen, I want to know, are you doing that every day?
Yes.
You're finding one person every day.
Yes, I am.
Okay, and how's that working out?
It's been better lately.
Better? Okay, so what kind of a habit would you need for that to happen? Here's what I'm going to suggest. If I ask myself this question, what is one idea that I can entertain every single day that I will take and act on every single day for the next 90 days, or even 100 if you will? Do I have the energy? Do I have the discipline? Do I have the wherewithal? Do I have the knowledge? Do I have the skill where I can put myself in front of a person, ask an intelligent question, or if it happens to be on the phone, if I say something like this to a prospect, let's do it this way for a moment. Let me do it this way. Mark, work with me on this. You ready? Ring, ring. I'm the salesperson. Mark, answer the phone.
Hello?
May I speak to Mark, please?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. Mark, it's John Kanary calling from the Investors Group, and I have a very special reason for calling today. May I take a couple of moments now, please? I promise I won't be long.
All right, go ahead.
Rarely does anybody say no to that. Attention, okay, interest, desire, and action. They're the only 4 things you have to learn to be very successful in this business. Just those 4 steps will make you very successful. Okay. So one habit, one thing that we're going to do in terms of the idea we're going to entertain, the action that we're going to take, that will start to build a successful habit over this next 90 to 100 days. Here's my point. I don't know where you are in your life here today, but I said, it doesn't matter how much you change, providing you change. That was what I said, and that's what I'll promise. That if you do one thing to find yourself in front of that person every single day for that 100 days, everything about your life will change for the better. Everything, not just one or two things. Question is, do we have the courage to do it every day? Do we have the courage to do it every day? Do we have the courage to come to the plate every day? Okay?
What are we doing?
So give me one of those that it's asking for. Just off the top of your head, give me one. Because we're always right.
Lack of business activity. I want to increase my business.
Could you help me out and tell me what's the cause of a lack of business activity?
I'm not getting enough meetings. I've you know, and that's partial. I know why it is. I haven't been. In the
You know
office.
why?
Yeah.
Okay, you don't have to share that with me. I understand that.
Yeah.
Okay? All right, so turn the page to habits there. Okay? What is a habit?
We do on a regular basis.
That you
Over and
do,
over again.
it's involuntary, right? You keep on doing it and you keep on
By
doing it,
default,
right?
yeah.
Huh?
By default.
Like, everybody do this for me. Would you do this? Just take your hand and hold it like that for a moment. Can you do that? Now just take it and put it on your chin like this. Okay? Now where's your chin? Your chin. Your chin, it's down here. Okay. Now that's all that is you were listening to me. That's all. You were listening to me,
And
which is a compliment to you,
and
right?
looking at you.
And looking at me, yeah.
And that's why we went like
Yeah,
that.
but I said, and put it on your chin.
Yeah. Yes.
I didn't even know where my chin was then, right? Yeah.
No.
But here's the point there. We go about doing things like that, we never really think about what we're doing a lot of the time. But if we turn over, like in other words, I think your income is important enough to take such good care of it that you turn it into a habit. Like if you become proactive tomorrow morning, like this whole table, you become proactive. And you do it again, and you do it again, and you all hold each other accountable to being proactive, proactive, proactive. And begin with the end in mind that day. You're going to see a lot of good things happen. You'll see a lot of good things actually happen. Covey promised that. Okay? So when you look at habits, what is one single habit you need to develop? Give me a habit you need to develop for your income.
Well, a habit I would need would be to make sure that I speak to 3 people in person every day.
Okay, to have an in-front, belly-to-belly, eyeball-to-eyeball, an appointment would be 3 appointments a day.
Actually, not an appointment, just actually physically.
Just
speaking
actually
to
talking
people.
to them,
Yeah,
okay?
actually
All right.
getting out of the office, talking to people.
Okay, you got one there, Kevin?
Maybe like call, make
How many calls a day are you thinking?
Yeah,
Is that what you're thinking?
yes,
How many calls?
like that's I think 10 calls in the morning at least.
Okay, all right, so if you do that every day, you'll see a huge change in what you're doing. You have, what are you putting down here?
I'll say at least one meeting every day.
One meeting
Yeah.
every day. How long you been in the business?
1 month.
Huh?
1 month.
So you're not earning a ton of money yet, huh?
No.
Oh. And you think one meeting a day is going to do it for you? Who sold you on that idea?
I make this idea.
What did he say?
Sorry?
But is that all you're going to be doing all day is having that one meeting?
Not the whole day. Like I would say, like this is
Yeah.
gonna be my main goal.
No, I'm not telling you not to do that because that's your right and your business, okay? But if you just became like, if it just became like a heat-seeking missile, that everybody you talk to is going to hear about what you do. Like, listen to me. Do you mind if I share with you what it is I do?
No. Yeah.
Yeah, and most people will say, yeah, go ahead. I can only do 3 things for you. Number 1 is that if you live too long, I can protect you that you don't outlive your money. Because that's becoming a more important thing. And if there should be some illness or accident or something, we can make sure that there's enough money for you to get through it. And number 3 is that if the breadwinner for some reason were to die, we can't replace them, but we can replace to some degree their income so that they can keep their promise. And it costs pennies a day to actually do that. You know, I had a guy one day, he started complaining about life insurance agents. I said, hey buddy, listen, do me a favor. Explain to me why something so important is upsetting you. Something that we should do, something that is an obligation, something that should be a commitment. Explain to me why we would ever find anything wrong with that. He didn't know what to say about that. So that's what you have to do. You have to have that kind of ownership of what it is you do for a living. You have to have that's the significant factor again. You have to have such a feeling of significance that it doesn't matter what people say, you still feel very proud about what it is you do. We got to get rid of the SOS, shame on selling. You know, people have this SOS, shame on selling, you know. Well, I got to tell you, the worst life insurance policy ever was the one that was never sold. See, what you do is you do a plan for people that if they live, this will be the outcome. But if they can't keep their promise, you can protect them along the way until they get there through life insurance. It's not a difficult thing. It really isn't. The difficulty is talking to people. Okay? All right, so Jim, are you down there? So what I really need you to do is something that comes out of this book, Think and Grow Rich. You know, where Napoleon Hill made it so clear. He said, one idea is all a person needs to succeed in anything they do. One idea is all they need. So if we had that one idea, we're going to be in front of someone every day. We're going to create one person every day. We're going to create that. I don't know how much else is going to come from that in terms of 3 or 4 appointments, 10 appointments, whatever it is, but I do know that if you want to be a star in this business, whether it be life insurance, financial services, anybody who can put themselves and find a way to be in front of 10 people every week could be financially independent inside of 3 years. Inside of 3 years. Okay, so how's everybody feel? Wonderful. Okay, cut you off guard there a little bit. Jim, you ready? Ready to go. Okay. Let's give Jim a hand.